Good evening, everyone. And thank you for tuning into the Beth Shalom Synagogue COVID Health and Safety Town Hall meetings. It was worth missing Stephen Harper for, trust me. He was all right. I just want to, say a couple of things. First of all, recap where we've been and what we've done over the last number of months. I can't believe it's about 6.5 months since this whole thing started. Whoever that guy was that started it. But it's been a while, and one of the good things about being first in anything is you really get to sort of lead the pack. And I can assure you that when it comes to COVID and synagogue closures, we were right there at the forefront. And we continue to be, I might add. I meet with synagogue presidents, conservative synagogue presidents on a weekly basis, and we share stuff that we're doing. And our team has done really, really, truly an incredible job just getting this thing going from the early days in March to where we're at today. I just want to recap, where some of that took place. So I guess, trying to navigate through everything and understand the guidelines, the provincial guidelines, the rules of the game were changing on a daily basis. We would make decisions in the morning, and by the end of the day, they wouldn't be worth the paper they were written on. So once things settled down a little bit, a couple of months into this thing, we formed a medical advisory team. And shortly after that, we under the auspices of David Krieger, started a reopening task force. That was all around, I think, the end of May, beginning of June. They worked tirelessly, this group of the opening task force, and we'll introduce them in a minute. They meet every single week. Stephanie is there with them as well. Just going over the plans, the advice of the Medical Advisory Board, the provincial guidelines, the municipal guidelines, the federal guidelines, and just to develop a plan on really how we can get things going and how we've gotten things going. The current, let me just remind everybody, but the current provincial guidelines: social gatherings outdoors, we can have up to 100. Indoors, we can have up to 50. For religious services, we can have 30% of a room capacity. And this is a change that just took place to reference what I was talking about earlier. Congregational singing is discouraged. As of last Friday, they put out, we weren't allowed to have a choir. They strongly discouraged us from having a choir sing at religious services. And that changed slightly, whereas they still, discourage it. They didn't sort of say you cannot have one. And I know a synagogue in particular that went out and hired a choir, and this week they announced that they're having a choir in their services. So these are the things that, David and his group had to really navigate through. And as I say, the entire committee under David's leadership and Stephanie as well really did a phenomenal job in putting this thing through. I also want to give a shout out to Marnie Packman and Jorge Hernandez in the custodial for really helping out and getting things done, and just health forms and all the information that has been done. They've done a really phenomenal job, worth everything that they've done. Let me talk about the medical advisory team for a moment. Next slide, please. I've got it. So they consist of Dr. Eric Horlick, who's a cardiologist at the Peter Munk Cardiac Center, Sybil Judah, who's the head of OBGYN at St. Joseph's and St. Mike's. And I believe, somebody can correct me if I'm misstating fact here, but I believe that Sybil also is the liaison person for COVID-19 for those hospitals with the government. So she's the sort of the lead COVID person at those two organizations. And Dr. Barry Rubin, who's the Chief Medical Director at the Peter Munk Cardiac Center, UHN. All members of the synagogue, I might add. So that's who the rabbi got in touch with and who we put in charge. And, you know, we constantly, the task force constantly asked questions and they gave us answers as what to do. As things changed, I think their thought process changed. Like originally we were talking about having to wipe down chairs in Sidurim and everything. And we still do, to a certain extent, some of that, but not to the same extent that we did in the beginning. So they've been very, very instrumental in sort of leading us through all this. The task force that I spoke about, David is chairing it. We've got Evan and Matt Kravchuk, Herschel Sahian, sorry, Herschel, Lawrence Scheinman, Stefan Sommer, and also Stephanie is on that team as well. And again, they've done just a phenomenal job since the end of May, putting all this together. I think now might be a good time for me to be quiet and hand the meeting over to David. So without further ado, the next president of Beth Shalom.
We'll see. Hi, everybody. My platform is Abe for 2 more years. Thank you for joining us tonight. I've had the pleasure of being the chair of the Reopening Task Force, and I want to again acknowledge the names on the screen. This is a very eclectic and conservative group of people who really took this job very seriously. We met at minimally once a week by Zoom, but everybody had assignments, and at the end of the day, we created a complete protocol of the synagogue, from walking in the front door to attending the service to leaving, and every step of the way. We've also focused on other situations, including the office that Stephanie will speak about. We're working with Alexa around the school, and any component of the opening has been examined. We've obviously have kept up to date on the latest government, and as you can see, changes in openings has created some issues, and the task force is constantly monitoring changes as they occur, not only in Ontario but elsewhere, to see to the extent they may have an impact on us here. And certainly the latest numbers are going to be reviewed and are always a component of our discussion. As far as I'm concerned, people have to make their own decision, but I can tell you that if you go to other public places, such as a Canadian Tire, a Metro, a Walmart, a bank, you may go to a restaurant, I'm very confident that the work that the task force has done, the protocols that we've created, the support of the team at Beth Shalom, both at the office, but also custodial, that you will be as safe, and I would say safer at Beth Shalom than anywhere you've been, if that gives you some peace of mind. I think have taken care of everything. We've had to make some tough decisions. We've recommended limitations on age as a matter of course. That doesn't mean that people are prohibited from attending if they're over age 60, 65, but we've recommended not. And also children under 13 are not to be in the building. We will go through the protocols, and some of them are on the screen now. There is everybody who attends the shul, whether you're coming to a Shabbat service or you're coming to a meeting, there is a health screening form that you must complete. There's a registration system with questionnaires for you to acknowledge. As you've seen, There is communication throughout the building around where you can go and where you shouldn't go. There is protective equipment provided if people don't have, and there's no mistake as to how you'll get to your seat because you'll virtually be ushered in and you'll be ushered out. So we really think we've addressed all the issues, including, of course, bathroom protocols and what have you. So there's no reason that we won't continue to evolve. And in fact, if there's any sense of concern or any abnormal risk, we will make decisions accordingly up to the time, you know, school starts.
If anyone's interested in the complete detailed list of the protocols, definitely call the office and speak with Marnie, or feel free to email me and we'll make sure that you get a complete copy if you'd like.
I think the next item, Stephanie, is about the building itself. And why don't I let you walk us through what we're doing here?
Sure. So we've had a gradual or rolling opening. You know, right at the beginning, the office was closed. The building entirely was closed for at least 6 weeks. I would say the custodians were there for security purposes. One second, I'm just going to unmute Abe. So there was always a presence in the building. We felt that that was really important, especially when there were far less people on the streets and out and about. We really wanted to make sure that there was always a live security presence in the building. After about 6 weeks, we did open the office. Only the policy for the staff were really to only go in for duties that were only absolutely could be done in the office and nowhere else. Go in and perform that task and then to go home. And we made sure that only 1 or 2 people were in the office at a time. Today, Marnie is in the office. She's the only one there on a regular basis. As you might imagine, with our busy season coming up, membership renewal, and of course the high holidays, there is a live voice on the other end of the phone from 9 in the morning until 5. And then the accounting staff go in as necessary and I go in as necessary. Shabbat, we also had a gradual opening. Really, we started late in May, and in June, we opened for a bar bat mitzvah. And really the first maybe 3 of them, we only had 20 people in the entire sanctuary. We limited it at number. And again, very, very strict protocols. And as Toronto and Ontario has moved through the various phases, as David mentioned earlier, we adapted all of our protocols, sometimes on a week-by-week basis, to make sure we were following them as closely as possible, but also allowing for a little bit more freedom when we felt we could do that. Through August, July and August, we had a few aufrufs. We had more B'nai Mitzvah. And the most so far we've had in the building has been 65 people. And it's gone quite well. And people that we followed up with afterwards say to us that they feel very safe in the building, and they're very relieved to see how seriously we're taking the protocols. And then of course, this is gearing up towards the high holidays. We will be open for services, Rosh Hashanah, day 1 and day 2. We will be open for Kol Nidre, to sell seats for the next few days. So far we have, and so if you think you might be interested in coming, you can still purchase seats. And if you have any questions, again, about the protocols or what things will be like, please don't hesitate to reach out to me or to the office, and we'll make sure that all of your questions are answered as in detail as possible. Again, the opening protocols that have applied the entire summer will apply again for the high holidays. Everybody will need to submit a health form each time they come into the building in the 48-hour period before that they come into the building. Everybody needs to register. People can't just show up and come into the building, whether it be a Shabbat. We need to know that you're coming. We need to expect you. There's plexiglass in the office. When it comes to services, we assign seating very carefully, and we're very strict about where people can sit. And we have ushers during all the services to make sure that people don't exchange their seat for another one. Everybody in the building at all times is asked to wear a mask. We have sanitizer all over the building, and the washrooms, every other sink and every other washroom is closed off to make sure that people are really separated properly in the washrooms. We ask that only 2 people at a time go into the washroom, and in there as well, there's lots of signage about how to wash your hands. There's sanitizer in the washrooms, and we have Lysol wipes for people who to wipe down the surfaces that they touch. David, do you have anything to add, David, or I can move on quickly and talk about Shalom Learning?
Please, I think we're covering everything very nicely. And of course, if people have questions, send us a quick chat note.
So the only thing I want to add is, Stephanie, you did break up there for a little bit. Like it was hard to hear you because of the connection. So if people have any questions that they didn't hear something, that they may have missed something, just send us a question in the chat room and we can answer it.
We're also recording it, and we're going to make the recording available afterwards, and there probably hopefully won't be a problem with the sound there. Alexa is on the Zoom meeting now, so I'll run through this very quickly, but if people have questions, again, you can just type into the chat, and either myself or Alexa can answer them. As you might imagine, people really want to know what's going to happen with Shalom Learning, our program under Alexa's direction, and of course with her assistant Fargana. Our program in the last year or two has really growth. They've just done a tremendous job. And so unfortunately, now there's COVID-19, which is affecting all schools, but of course, the supplementary schools as well. Registration is open. What we're doing is offering virtual online learning for those parents who want their students to participate, but only from a distance, as well as in-person classes, which truthfully we know really the young ones in particular do much better. JK, SK, grade 1, grade 2 really do much better when they're learning in person. So we're really trying to be as flexible as possible and offering as much as we possibly can. We do have to limit the class sizes, of course. So the maximum in the school will be 90 students this year. We plan to start after all of the Chagim are over. So that's a bit, mid-October. The protocols have been developed. They're there for everybody to see. Toronto Public Health in the province of Ontario has been very diligent in the protocols surrounding schools. So we're monitoring those very carefully. They do keep changing, and I suspect as the next weeks go on and public schools open, the private schools are already open, but as the public schools become open, our sense is that these protocols will continue to change. So, when we're ready to open by mid-October, of course, we'll be following the most up-to-date directives that are available to us. And similarly to this, Alexa and Fargana are going to facilitate a town hall only for the school just after Rosh Hashanah. And if people after this, after that town hall decide that they want to register, we'll be able to answer questions there as well. I just want to pause for a minute. If anybody has any questions for myself about this or Alexa, you can chat or you can raise your hand and we'll try questions. Programming is something that we're just now starting to do in person. If you've been following your weekly emails.
Stephanie, you're cutting out.
Okay, how's this? A bit better?
Yeah, you're okay now.
Okay, sorry about that. And so again, you know, a credit to Alexa and Fargana and their team who really want to make sure that we can keep our young families connected and the kids engaged in Jewish life as much as possible. So there's a bunch of programming coming up. It's all on our website. You'll see it in the weekly emails. We're going to use the outside, the parking lot, the parks as much as possible. We do have a small tent that we'll put up. If the weather isn't good enough to be outside, then we will use our big spaces in the building, like the assembly hall and the banquet hall. And again, very small numbers. Everybody will be wearing masks, no food at all, and the protocols will be strictly adhered to. David, you want to talk about what's to come?
Yep. So as it stands now, and as Abe and Stephanie has mentioned, and I want to reinforce, things change very quickly. As it stands now, we're planning to have sukkah services. We would like to start introducing food, if that's possible, in a safe manner, and the reopening committee is examining how that might happen. Similarly, minyan services. As it stands now, we're hopeful to start minyan services at least on Torah reading days, being Monday and Thursday, and also looking at options of safely introducing the opportunity to have food in the building and get back to having a breakfast and a schnapps in the morning. Looking ahead to, depending on what's happening with this disease and what the situation is, to coming up with something more permanent, temporarily permanent, so that we can hold outdoor services in the parking lot. But really, at this point, we want to get through the Yom Tovim. We want to get school open, get through, and winter will be here before we know it. So we'll reassess in due course. I am in my spare time, by the way, I am working on an antivirus when I'm not at Beth Shalom meetings. I hope to have it by November 4th. So, you know, the big thing that I really want everyone to understand is that although we have these protocols, we will very quickly change them if we see any sign or emergence of any, you know, red lights or pink flags, to make sure, and including in the extreme case of closing the building down again. But that's certainly the most extreme situation. But if safety is really the issue, then that's what will happen. Are there any questions? Stephanie, do you have to unmute people? Or do you want people to have questions by chat?
They can raise their hand and I'll unmute them, or they can type it into the chat function, whatever they're more comfortable with. So far, I don't see anybody who's raised their hand or asked a question. That means we've been very thorough.
There's no questions. I can tell you that Shacharis is at 8 a.m. Shofar blowing around 8:28 tomorrow, so please come for that. And if you do want to sign up for services, for high holiday services, if this meeting has given you any additional sense of confidence and you wish to do that, then please go online and register, and it'll be my pleasure to be able to greet you as we did in days past, perhaps with an air elbow instead of a handshake or a hug, but it'll be great if that happens.
And we're open for Shabbos too. We had services last Saturday. There was a bar mitzvah, but we were open to all of our congregation, and we'll be open again this Shabbos. So if you want to come before the Yom Tovim, kick the tires, check it out, see, you know, if the clergy have lost their edge, which they haven't. come join us for Shabbos.
I was there a couple of weeks ago for a simcha, and Abe was there this Shabbos. And you know what? It's there's no place like it.
Yeah, it was nice to be back for sure. And I had the Kiddush Club all to myself.
Uh-oh.
So that's really our agenda for the evening. Again, please do reach out to us. Really don't hesitate. If you're thinking you might like to come, we're really happy to spend time with you and answering all of your questions as detailed as possible to make sure everybody's really comfortable coming into the space.